Mike Golic Jr. with us now here on the Sports Bash at 97.3 ESPN. Junior, I was telling a little bit about you and I sauntering our way over to the bar because where else would you find us, right?
Listen, that's what we do, and I heard you saying, and it's absolutely true. The freer the drinks are, the more likely I am to be in that vicinity, and I know that holds true for you, so no wonder we got along so well there.
Very much so, and we're excited to have you on as a guest here to sort of inform our listeners a little bit. Now, I was joking earlier in the show that your show is from 4 to 6, and since we're in the Atlantic City market, and I've been down here for a while, there's many times where I haven't gone to bed yet at 4 in the morning, so I just flip that on and take a little listen to the first and last there on the mothership, if you will, and 4 to 6 in the morning. But then you're going to have some expanded responsibilities as well coming up in late fall. Why don't you tell us first and foremost about first and last, and then tell us about those expanded responsibilities?
Yeah, well, like you said, first and last is sort of this weird cross-section audience-wise where we understand quite literally built into the name that we could be the last thing you hear before you go to bed, if going to bed is something that's even in the cards for you at that point, or what people pop in when they're first getting up. And either way, we want to make sure that we're getting everyone ready to go for whatever portion of the day they're in. And so it's cool because you get a lot of people. I mean, we get long-haul truck drivers. We get people that are up, on their workout going into work, and we get people that download the podcast later on. So it's cool to kind of see all the weird cross-sections of the Venn diagram of first and last listeners. But, and then coming up late this fall, which has been the buzzword for a while, my dad and Trey Wingo are getting ready to start the new morning show that will happen after Mike and Mike finishes up there. Obviously, Greeny has got the time before his TV show takes off. And so Dad and Trey will be starting a show 6 to 10, and I will be coming over to join them for the first hour, 6 to 7. And, it's like anything else. It could be a little wiggle room. Maybe I'll stay longer. I'm sure the guys will need me to, come in and carry them for as long as I can. And so after first and last, I'll walk right across the hallway and get to hang out with them. And it should be a good time. I mean, I get to work with my dad. I've known Trey and grown up in the same town where, he's raised his family for a long time now. So to get to work with the two of them, and especially get to work with my dad, is a pretty unique and cool opportunity.
Well, everybody in this market knows your father from his time with the Philadelphia Eagles, and of course I know his reverence for the late, great James David, Buddy Ryan. Do you have any Philadelphia memories or any ties to this city that stick out for you, Junior?
You know what? I was unfortunately so young that all of my memories of Philadelphia are in pictures, but I was fortunate. My younger brother did his last year of college football at the University of Cincinnati, and so they played Temple at the Link, and we got to go back as a family for that game. And just to go around that area and to, be with my dad and see the way that the city still really embraces him as a guy that was there for so long and really represented a lot of what that city is about, a blue-collar area that has a great edge to it and that loves its sports teams. And to see how much he still loves that place and get to go back and experience that was great, because I grew up hearing stories about all those guys, about Reggie and Jerome and Clyde and that defense, and all of the antics that Buddy used to try and motivate those guys behind the scenes. And it was always really cool for me, but to get to go back and kind of see it all up close and personal and see that environment was a really cool experience for us as a family.
He generally didn't call you by your name. He called you by your number. So for you, he'd say, hey, 57, you're looking good out there, right? I mean, you can find Mike Golic Jr. on Twitter at mgolic Jr. 57, by the way. Yeah, we were lucky enough to have Buddy Ryan on the show here on the Sports Bash one time. He picked up from his barn, basically. He was out with the horses. And, of course, remember, Mike Golic Jr., that he had a horse named Fired for Winning. Famously, that was one of his horses, because that was his principle back when he used to say the things about the owner like the man in France. And, I mean, just a colorful NFL coach for sure, that maybe he didn't win a playoff game, but he sure won the hearts of the city of Philadelphia. So your show in the morning is all-encompassing, and you obviously, maybe from a distance, have been able to see the buzz that's around the Philadelphia 76ers and all the moves that they made moving up to get the top pick and get Markelle Fultz, maybe a healthy Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. What's your take from afar on the Sixers movement, and are you buying into the hype?
I'm buying into it. I still think it's a couple of years before we'll really see the payoff, but I'm just hoping for a year where all these guys can be healthy, because A, it could be a very good team, but B, what a fun group of guys it can be. Joel Embiid has slowly made himself into the face, quite literally adopting the nickname The Process and really embracing everything about that. And being emblematic of what today's NBA is, which is a league driven by really colorful stars. And you definitely got one there who can also play some basketball. I mean, it was such a shame to see him go down last year when he did, because he was having an easy Rookie of the Year type of season. So now you combine him with Ben Simmons, who you mentioned before was getting LeBron James comparisons for his game while at LSU, and the top overall pick in Markelle Fultz. There's so much to get excited about, so much of the remnants of Sam Hinkie's process, as maligned as it was in a lot of different ways, hopefully starting to pay those dividends now for a team that can capitalize on an Eastern Conference that really seems devoid of a lot of talent outside of maybe two teams.
Hey, Mike, I wanted to ask you, sticking with the NBA, you look over at Boston with them getting Gordon Hayward. You know, when you were a college player, before you got to college, you were obviously recruited before you went to Notre Dame. You've had to deal with professional teams signing you and releasing you at the professional level. You know, what is it like for a player to go through the recruitment process, and what are some of the things that you think Gordon Hayward got recruited on when it came to going to the Celtics and not going and staying with the Jazz?
Yeah, it's kind of about what each guy values and tapping into that. And I think at whatever level you're recruiting, whether it's free agents or, as you mentioned, prospective college athletes, you've got to understand what each player is looking for in their experience. Some guys really value the education coming out of high school. Some guys wanted to go somewhere where they'd be able to play a national schedule. Some guys want to stay close to home. And a lot of that applies to free agency. Utah was able to play on the fact that Gordon had familiarity there. It was a place that he had invested in, and vice versa. And that was all they really had to go on. They had built a hell of a team there from the ground up. But unfortunately, when you look at the scenarios side by side, it's really hard to look at it and see anything other than an objectively better spot in Boston, because you're going through an Eastern Conference, because you've got his head coach. And what I heard from Dan Dockich talking about it, a guy who knows Gordon Hayward and his family, so this guy's really a basketball junkie. And so when you've got Brad Stevens and that staff able to sell him on, these are all of the things, X's and O's, we think we can do with you. These are the ways we think we can really feature your skill set in our offense. And these are the guys you're going to get to play around who were the 1 seed last year, who could really use someone of your talent and skill set to take us over the edge. All of that seems appealing to a guy that's been described as a basketball junkie.
Hey, Mike, what do you make of the ability that all these superstars like Gordon Hayward and LaMarcus Aldridge last year, or 2 years ago, and like Kevin Durant last year, they all have the ability now to kind of go almost anywhere they want freely once they hit free agency? I mean, how do you think that's really reshaped the NBA, considering these guys that are superstars of this caliber, they can really kind of just shake up the league at almost free will at this point and command top dollar?
I think it makes it exciting for general fans of the league. I can understand where regional fans and people in specific markets may suffer from this, though, because if you're Utah, this is a crushing blow, because this has been your homegrown star, a guy that you drafted and were able to develop along the way, who's improved every season. So that can be tough, but in a league where everyone is trying to figure out how we're going to knock Golden State, and in the Eastern Conference to a bit lesser of an extent Cleveland, off their pedestal, you understand it's going to take a lot, and it's made NBA free agency really exciting for everyone watching. It's going to make the regular season interesting, how all these teams mesh up. It's just a matter of, can you still have that balance of teams like Philadelphia, of teams like the Timberwolves, who are growing their young crop of talent, the Raptors, who were able to keep Kyle Lowry and Serge Ibaka in there, and on down the list. I mean, even Golden State, to an extent, their homegrown talent, and Kevin Durant taking less to stay there with that continuity. Can you find that balance between all the chaos? But ultimately, I'm for this player agency. It's not only giving these guys more control over it than ever, but also forcing the owners to be creative and to go out and show these guys they're willing to spend their money to make sure that the team can be successful.
Hey, Mike, one of the teams in our backyard also is the Philadelphia Eagles, and Pro Football Focus rated them as the top offensive line in the NFL, which I think is a bit of a stretch, because the Cowboys last year, you could argue, were the best offensive line. But where do you view them as an offensive lineman yourself? Where do you view this Eagles line in 2017 among the NFL ranks?
Yeah, you know what? It's one of those things. I popped some tape on them not too long ago, and it is a very good group. Now, Pro Football Focus, their grading system, it takes into account a very specific set of things. So I'm not going to say that they're the best outfit top to bottom, they might be inside that top 10 of offensive line, especially at the tackle and center spots. We know guard was kind of an area of weakness for them last year, but between Kelsey, Peters, and Lane Johnson, provided he can stay on the field after what we saw last year, you've got three of the best at their respective positions across the board. And so if you can get improved play from those guard spots, you've absolutely got a group that's capable of protecting your franchise player now in Carson Wentz. So while I don't think they're the best, I think they're close to getting there. They're improved guard play away from being one of the better units because they've already got marquee talent at three of your most important spots.
Hey, Mike, just switching topics a bit here. In the sports media business, which you've been a part of for quite a bit now, with the changing direction of how it's being used in terms of writing and everybody having to basically be talented in multiple areas, now that you're joining a new show at the end of the year,
late fall.
Sorry,
if there's one thing I took away from New York City, it was the words late fall. Go ahead.
Definitely late fall, BT. Mike, how important is it for journalists and personalities, such as yourself? You guys have to be multifaceted and be willing to take on many different jobs that kind of all form into one. And I graduate school next year, and they have been stressing the fact that you have to be talented in writing, you have to be talented in talking and filming behind the scenes as well. I mean, how important is it for you to be able to kind of balance so many things in this business?
It's really important, and that's where I've been super fortunate in the early going here, just because ESPN has allowed me early on to put my finger in a lot of pies, so to speak. I've gotten to call college football games, and we'll get to do more of that this fall. I started off in radio and at the national level where I was forced to talk about a lot of different subjects outside of just football. I mean, I started first and last in April, as far away from football season as we could get. And that forced me to really develop the other areas. And between that and doing television, doing studio television, doing shows like Sports Nation, where it's an entirely different format, it focuses you to try and figure out, okay, how do I take what I do well and apply it to all those scenarios? Because you're right, as all this marketplace shrinks and everything gets more a la carte along the way, we know those trends are happening. And so versatility is going to be that currency going forward. So the more I can make sure that I can just be dropped in anywhere and still produce the things that are unique to me, it really is invaluable. And it seems to be, you're right, exactly what it's going to take to be successful now.
He's Mike Golic Jr. He's the host of First and Last each morning from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, he'll be having a role in late fall with his father, Mike Golic, when it's Golic and Wingo. That'll be the new program when that launches in late fall. His Twitter handle is @mGolicJr. 5'7", although I don't know, Mike Golic Jr. I think Sydney sometimes out-tweets you. She's pretty darn good herself. But we sure loved having you on, and we hope we get to have you on again sometime, pal.
Appreciate it. Yeah, Sydney's the best follow in the family for my money, but appreciate the time, guys. Definitely look forward to talking to you again soon.